Alright, welcome back. This is a review for Fruits Basket Season 2, Episode 4/29. This is a very Haru-centric episode, although I don't really have a whole lot to say on it, only because it's kind of more of a setup chapter for future events. There are some things I want to talk about, but not a whole lot, just because they're not like really long-winded things. They're just kind of little things here and there, but it's not really like a chapter that it's not like the previous chapters that we've had where they kind of have a little message in them in a sense. This is just more set up for future things. Especially with dealing with Ren. We don't really know much about her at the moment, besides that she was Haru's former girlfriend and that she broke up with him, and that caused Haru to get he got frustrated about the situation, went black, and then of course at the end there he's talking about how he's not planning on giving up on her just yet. He wants to get back together with her. And that's kind of the gist of the episode. I mean, there's a little bit here that doesn't really but doesn't deal with Haru. But it's just a really interesting chapter, kind of. But it's not like a big like character development chapter or anything. It's just like, okay, it just has it's more of a setup chapter, I'd say, if anything. Or I keep saying chapter. It's more of a setup episode, if anything, for future events and kind of to get things in place. And it works fine. So I will mention this, however, and that's about the chapter itself. Is that so? Similar to the Kagura's introduction chapter, where it was just because so far typically every episode is 2 chapters per episode. This one, however, is only 1 chapter. Well, kind of 1 chapter. I'll get into that in a second. It's kind of 1 chapter with the end of another one. But it's like the Kagura chapter, or the Kagura's introduction episode, and that it was 1 chapter that they expanded on a little bit to kind of make it 1 episode. So similarly, this is 1 chapter that they expanded on to make it into 1 episode, and it works. Now, mind you, it's only kind of 1 chapter. Alright, so up until the point in the episode where Mayu, the teacher, calls out Haru to be like, hey, your mom's here, after when Yuki and Haru were having their conversation in the classroom. That's all 1 chapter. Well, it's not entirely 1 chapter, because at said chapter, like the last 3 pages of said chapter, it skips over to Toru walking home by herself, and she runs into Ritsu. And then after that, it's 2 full chapters of Ritsu's introduction, which of course we've already had in the anime, so you can't do that. But then like the last 4 or 5 pages of the second Ritsu introduction chapter is Yuki going over and visiting Haru. So, because they kind of, this Haru breakup dealing with Ren happens around the Ritsu chapter, in which we've already had, they just took the 2 portions and put them together. So, in a sense, it makes 1 full chapter, but it's just, the good chunk of the episode's from one, and the very tail end is from another. And then, of course, they added some extra little scenes to kind of pad out the runtime as well. But, so it's really interesting that they did that. But, I mean, they're going to have to, regardless. But I couldn't imagine them, like, based on what chapters we have left before summer break hits, I wouldn't have imagined them really. I don't really think they could have. I mean, they could have paired it up with some other chapters, but I don't really think they would have been able to without it kind of being a bit weird. It kind of flows better this way to have this as 1 central chapter. Or episode. I keep saying chapters. As 1 central episode. But for the most part, I mean, the episode was good in and of itself. There was a lot of good tension in the black Haru scene, or dark Haru scene, depending on when you go with it. But it was really good. The added scenes were like the extra scene with the second time Omiji runs into the classroom saying, oh no, this is terrible. and just kind of an extended scene of Uo and Hana talking about food, what food they'll have for the class trip that happens in the fall. We haven't even gotten to the fall. That's much later. I don't even know if that would be in season. It might be in season 2. Maybe. Anyway, um, but and then just kind of Ren showing up more often, because she definitely didn't show up that often in the manga chapters. Her kind of showing up and whatnot, um, and Yuki, when he goes to the main house, kind of before he enters in, having that little panic attack. That's also an added scene, as well as the Kyo scene, the 2 additional Kyo scenes with him at the dojo, which I'll get to that in a second. But I actually really like these added scenes because it really kind of adds to the kind of what's going to be going on later. Plus, it kind of adds to the character development as well. I know that like I like having Ren kind of show up here and there because it kind of makes it more suspenseful, ooh, mysterious as to who she is. But I really like, especially the Kyo and the Yuki thing, which is Yuki. I mean, this is a big step for him in terms of actually going to the main house of his own volition and actually going there. In particular, but he's going there for Haru, so you can check up on him, and it's really cool. It's really nice because if you go back to like the beginning of the series, there's no way he would have done that. But it's really nice to have that and be able to see his character development as he's grown over the course of this past season, or in a year in anime time, within the anime time. And then more so, but then there's also the Kyo side to it, which so this is the thing that, and there is something that kind of goes with this, but I don't think I should say it at the moment because it's not a big spoiler, but it's just something that people like. It happened actually. It's just something that it's just a little conversation that him and Toru have. It's a very brief conversation. It's very casual, but it hasn't happened yet, even though it actually happened earlier on. It actually happened not too long after the True Form arc. So people are hoping that it happens soon. I think it will. I won't tell you what it is, but I mean, it's not like a big spoiler or anything. It's not anything big, but it's just nice to have it done. Just to have that little conversation. Um, um, but it does, and because I know that some people are kind of frustrated with these 2 scenes because they wanted it to build up to that little conversation that they have. And it's a very brief little casual conversation that takes all of like 2 seconds. But I actually kind of like the little addition that they made, because in the manga you have this scene where Momiji, Toru, and Momiji, Toru, and Kyo are kind of all talking in the hallway, and Kyo's like, "Hey, Toru, stay away from Haru when he goes black, because it'll I don't want you you can get hurt." And as he's saying this, and as he's like mid sentence saying this, and then he stops and looks down at his beads. And for me, I never really kind of got that. I was like, okay, he just kind of stopped and looked at his beads. It never really clicked with me that. And then of course in the manga, in the anime now, it's a lot more apparent that he stopped and looked at his beads, and you kind of make the connection of, oh, okay, you kind of get what he's thinking. And then it's reiterated, especially when you go back to the dojo and he's staring at his beads, going, I have no right to tell her to stay away from Haru when he turns black, because he has yet to hurt her in that form when he's like that. But I hurt her. I've already hurt her. I have, what right do I have to tell her to stay away from him? And so I'm hoping, again, there's this little scene. It's a really short conversation. I'm really hoping that they're kind of building up to it. And I don't mind. And that some people are kind of like, I wanted to be in this episode, but it's fine. I'm fine with it either way. And it's not, I'm halfway tempted to just tell you what it is, but at the same time, because it's not really that big of a spoiler. It's not even like super spoilery material, but I figured, I'll just leave it there, and so that I just won't say anything. um, but regardless, it's a good episode. Again, for me, this is more of a build up episode to kind of what's gonna be happening in the some things that will happen in the future, some character development, some character interaction and such. Um, so yes, it will be interesting. It will be fun, but that's really about it. Really, I don't really have much to say on the rest of the episode. I mean, it wasn't the it really was what it was. Now I'm just rambling. um, anyway, I can't wait for next week's episode because as soon as I saw the preview title for next week, I was like freaking out because I was like, oh my gosh, yes, we're finally going to get that person. That person finally appears. Yes. Anyway, so that's about it. So thanks for watching, and bye for now.